even if we don't experience worst case scenario, you're going to have a massive brain drain in the United States with this savvy money leaving the country, doctors leaving the money, just as Eastern Germany experienced, probably much like Russia experienced as it made the transition into the Soviet Union and then under Stalin. Something about the years under Stalin was that it wasn't just political dissidents who were brought to the Gulag. It was random in many cases. People would be in the Gulag scribbling on the walls Stalin's name because they had believed in the man. But the violence, to a degree, was random. In terms of Ron Paul, a lot of people don't believe that he should be president. They think that the ruling class will collapse the economy and then blame it on him. Others think that...
so what? It's going to collapse anyway.
I agree. Other people believe that he's just bringing in a form of austerity measures because they don't understand the power of the free market economy. And you can get rid of bulky bureaucracy and transform the outlay of an economy completely, and we won't have the austerity measures because we won't need the public institutions basically subsidizing a population that's being extracted.
Well, it was in Simplicity last Saturday night. They said, Mr. Paul, what about raising taxes? And he said, well, why would you do something? Well, let's extend the tax break and let's cut $1 trillion out of the budget. Now, is that a no-brainer?
Mm-hmm. He wants the president's salary yearly to be the median of the U.S. population. And with a free market economy, we could have that median raised triumphantly. So it won't be that the president's making $38,000, which I think is probably a cooked number as far as what the median individual in the country is making. It could be much higher if small businesses, for example, weren't being trampled on by city governments, by state governments, by the federal government, and then by telecommunications companies, for example, who, because they have monopolies, are basically able to do whatever they please, including tapping our phones and listening in on us. The economy would be much different.
That you have to consider, and I probably am one of the world's experts at this. And the reason is I'm 76 years old and I'm 2 months younger than Ron Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to the stage in life, money means absolutely nothing to you. Because where you're going, they don't have money.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not an accumulator anymore. What you do, if you can still function on all fours, so to speak, what you do is you go out and you educate and help other people so that they can understand how to take care of their lives or who's doing what to them and why. And that's what I've done, and that's what Ron Paul's done. So money means nothing to Ron Paul because I know where his head is.
People are comforted by this notion that the government is incompetent, and they think that's why the world is such a scary place like it is today. But the truth is something different. Wouldn't you say, Bob?
I would say that they're not incompetent one bit. They're a bunch of criminals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I went into counterintelligence back in the early 1950s when it was really in its infancy. It just graduated from OSS to CIA. CIA came under NSA along with military, naval, intelligence and things like that. And, I went in and they, in the olden days, they used to draft people. So I was one of them. And but I got a great job in counterintelligence. The first thing I learned is how the Japanese diplomatic code is broken in 1937, both the British and the U.S. Navy. And so we knew everything the Japanese were doing. And part of what the Germans were doing as well, because they used to communicate with one another. And so what did they do? They lined up the ships in Pearl Harbor because they knew the Japanese were on the way, and they wanted a good excuse to have a war. And when I saw that, I knew there was something dramatically wrong with our government and the people who control it.
Yeah, and obviously with the bill passing the NDAA, nothing's changed, and it's just getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to get rid of so many things that have been hung upon us, this new military appropriations bill, the TSA, Homeland Security, Patriot Acts, the President's Working Group on Financial Markets that rigs every market in the world every day, the Federal Reserve, lobbying, campaign contributions, all of them gotta go.
Right. If Ron Paul does not win, and I have customers ask me this weekly, what country is safe to go to? Where is a good landing spot? Should you, Americans don't travel that much. Europeans, they move all the time. But Americans, we're always just sitting here. Where would be a country or a good country to pick up and move
to? I've lived in every country in South and Central America and Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there's one fascist government, and that's in Argentina. There are free governments, we'll call them, in Chile, Paraguay, although I wouldn't want to live there. There's nothing there. and Colombia. All the rest of them in South America are communists. Now, who wants to live in a communist country? I don't. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was living in Montevideo, and they elected not only a communist, this guy is a hardcore killer. They elected him as president. Well, I knew I didn't want to live there anymore. But anyway, the best countries to go to live in who have a lifestyle that's somewhere near what you have now. And number 3 is Costa Rica. Number 2 is Chile. And number 1 is Mexico.
Well, we're not very far from Mexico, sitting here in San Diego.
No, that's right.
Short drive.
Central Mexico is a great place to live. 150-mile radius of Guadalajara, very little crime, industriousness, hardworking people, very wealthy. 99% of them pay cash for their homes or build them piece by piece.
Is it difficult for a U.S. citizen to get secondary citizenship in Mexico?
6 years.
6 years.
Mm-hmm.
5 plus the folderol, and you've got to speak Spanish, and they're very strict on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's the easiest place. You get what do they call them? It's a visa. It's the number on it is 3.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that first, and then you get an FM2. It's the FM of the federal mandate 2. And then after that, after you've been in the country for 5 years, you can get an immigrado status where you can do everything that a Mexican do except vote.
Right.
And then if you want to become a citizen, you just hop down and line up for the test.
Mm-hmm.
And the test is not easy.
Good for them. That's we have some customers that like Panama. What are your thoughts on Panama?
They keep on changing the rules, and the U.S. tells them what to do.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And it's hot as Hades there. I used to live there. Now, Costa Rica, if you live in San Jose, it's on a 4,500-foot plateau, and the weather's quite nice. But if you go over to the Pacific to Guanacaste or down to Limon, it's hot as Hades. And so, it all depends on what you want. I live there as well, and I lived just about everywhere in South and Central America. The government doesn't like me very well, so I keep on changing residences.
Well, let's hope that we can get Ron Paul in office so we all don't have to worry about heading south ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's right, and that's extraordinarily important to all of us. It's the dividing line. I mean, we either do it or we lose.
Mm-hmm. People say that it can't be done. Ron Paul can never be elected, this or that. But when one looks at the numbers objectively, it's very clear that Ron Paul is popular and he's gaining popularity. And people can go on YouTube every single day and watch the man speaking the same sort of truth over the last 20 to 30 years, oftentimes predicting things 20 to 30 years before they come to pass. We've heard over the last 5 years much of the SDRs, essentially a circulating currency for the ruling class. Ron Paul was talking about that sort of thing during his very first presidential campaign in, I believe, in 87, 88. NPR, who ignored Ron Paul blatantly. I torture myself every morning and listen to NPR because I find it interesting to see what the government mouthpiece is insinuating to the American public, and they ignored the man blatantly. It was, I think, poor propaganda to a degree. Now they can't ignore him. They're having to bring him in to the discussion whenever they speak about the Republican primaries. And it's simply demand.